Hey, everybody, and welcome back to the SoCap Improv Comedy Podcast. My name is Ralph McLeod. I'm your somewhat genial host. I'm also the owner and artistic director at SoCap Comedy on the Danforth in Toronto. That's socap.ca, SOCAP. We do all the usual improv stuff: shows, improv classes, corporate events, rentals. Now, if you're in Toronto and the surrounding area, and something you hear on here sparks your interest, come and take a class with this old shoe, this old hunk of leather. And if you're outside of Toronto, I've done Zoom classes and I wouldn't be opposed to doing them again. Actually, there's a lot of, on Zoom is an interesting way to teach improv, and I learned a lot. And Zoom has a couple of advantages, which I've talked about before, and we'll talk about again. All right, so today I want to talk about the old mistake. There's these things happen all the time, and people. I say mistakes because people treat them like mistakes. They misspeak and they try to. Oh, they feel bad about it. They want to take it back. They want to undo it. They want to explain. And I totally understand that. I mean, in the world, that's what we've been, drilled into us. Don't make mistakes. You get that big red X on your thing. People make fun of you, and so there can be a lot of stress over getting things right. Also, it's just sometimes in certain exercises, people want to make sure they've got the rules, quote unquote, correct so that they can play along and not be, not appear dumb or in some way not entirely with it. But for me, and what I would like to encourage in this podcast is to think of improv mistakes as not a mistake, and not just improv mistakes, just mistakes in general, as a doorway to learn, a doorway to a new way of looking at something, to a new avenue that would not have been explored if you hadn't made that mistake. Now this is not always true, but by and large, for the most part, a mistake is only bad if you treat it as bad, right? Here's an example. I have thousands of these, well, not thousands, but I have a lot of them, a multitude, a legion, if you will. And but this one happened. I perform with these three nincompoops called the Coincidence Men, the four of us, and this was a few years ago. We were doing a montage, which is a series of scenes, and you need to know that for one reason, which is coming up. But montage, it's the same group of people. You start a scene when that scene's over, rather than stopping and doing a new one. Someone sweeps it or somehow edits it, and it's gone, and then you do a new one. You do another scene and another scene and another scene. And over time, because it's the same people and it's the same show, games develop and patterns and all these other wonderful things. I love doing montages. Again, I won't go into that now, but I love doing them. And so you basically get a chance to do several scenes. Anyway, in this one particular night, one of my fellows tripped and fell. It wasn't bad, but he kind of just tripped. And I believe it was Gord Oxley misspoke, and he meant to say, "Well, that's unfortunate," but he said, "Well, that's malfortunate." And the audience laughed, like they tittered, they haha in their head, like at the mistake, right? And whenever I hear something like that and I'm on stage, I'm like, oh, I just put that in my pocket because they laughed, it registered, so I just hang on to that because you never know when you're going to need it. Anyway, we that scene got swept. We started a new one, and in this one, it ended with someone getting shot. And as they were dying, I said, "Wow, that's malfortunate," and the audience laughed harder. And the third and fourth and fifth scene, we kept ending them with "that's malfortunate." By the sixth time we came out to start a scene, the audience, they're buzzing, they're vibrating, and they're just like, "Oh, please say malfortunate again. Please, please, please." And I remember it ended with again something happening, and I just paused and I went, "Boy, there's a word for what just happened, and I can't think of the word right now. And everybody's just like, say the word, say the word. And it was very fun. But that all happened because somebody made a mistake and misspoke a word. But that became the whole, basically the whole thing, the whole show, our 20-minute or 25-minute thing was variations. I mean, no, it's not the only thing we did. There were other things going on, but this, we would call it the malfortunate, show or the malfortunate set, because that simple little mistake, because we didn't treat it as such, became a fun thing. And there's a real life example, and it's if you go on YouTube and Google Herbie Hancock and Miles Davis, there's a Herbie Hancock tells this story about Miles Davis. So Herbie Hancock, a jazz musician, a keyboardist, I believe, mainly, and Miles Davis was one of the greatest jazz trumpeters of all time. Anyway, Herbie's telling the story about they're in Germany and they're playing, and it's a real nice, groovy night. And Miles is starting to do his solo, and he's in the middle of it. And inexplicably, in the middle of this, Herbie on the keyboard hits the wrong chord. And he says, I'm paraphrasing, that it just sounded all wrong. And he didn't know how he did it. And he panicked and he pulled his hands off the keyboard and just grabbed his head and went, oh no, oh no. And he felt so bad. But he said, Miles, the professional that he was, paused for a second and then played a series of notes that made that wrong chord, quote unquote, right. So Miles Davis, didn't call out the mistake. He didn't stop. He just absorbed that into what he was doing and did this thing that I call the bigger circle. This thing that seemed to be outside the circle is not outside the circle. It's now actually inside the circle, and we're off in a new direction, a direction we never would have had if someone hadn't done that, quote, mistake. So this mistake became a new direction, and Herbie says himself in the thing, it's like he uses that in music. He learned a lot that day about music and also in life. And that's the thing too, the what when I teach and the way I live my life, like I teach all these improv nuggets, philosophies, best practices, whatever you want to call them. And I live my life like this. So the same thing with mistakes. We make tons of mistakes as we go through life. We befriend the wrong people. We cast off the wrong people. We say no to opportunities we shouldn't have, and we say yes to opportunities that we shouldn't have, and all these things and mistakes. And you can look at them as, oh, bad choices, and oh, I wish I could undo them. But these bad choices, these mistakes, they're our teachers, and they teach us. When I was teaching my daughter to skate, and she was like 5, and she kept falling, and she'd get frustrated. And I'd say, like, look, man, every time you fall, you're learning how not to fall. So you're learning how to skate. And when she started thinking about it like that, a little bit later, she wiped out, had this big fall, and she got up and beaming. She said, Dad, did you see that wipeout? I said, that was amazing. You are so learning how not to fall. So mistakes are only mistakes, by and large, if you think of them as bad. They don't have to be. And just thinking about this because it happened literally like 2 days ago in my class, where another character misspoke, and he had meant to say, "You never cease to amaze me," but instead he said, "You cease to amaze me," and people laughed. That same kind of like ha 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 laugh. That's not right, and they kind of laugh. I don't know what you'd call that kind of laugh. It's not quite self-conscious, but it's certainly not a belly laugh. It's an interesting laugh. And then later on in this like class, when one character was confronted by another character who gave them this ultimatum, that person who was given the ultimatum said, "You cease to amaze me," and the room exploded. They lost it. And what's really special about that, these games, these references that we create in the moment, is for the 8 or 10 of us in that room, "You cease to amaze me" means something, and it's special, right? It means something only to us. Like even hearing this, it won't mean the same to you. You might be able to appreciate it, if you have similar experiences, but it's really powerful. And that only came about because the mistake, although originally in the class, the student wanted to, like, oh. And I was like, no. Say it again. You cease to amaze me. There you go. That's it. And we're going to hang on to that. And I know, like, in scenes and in life, we don't like to make mistakes. But mistakes, they humanize us. They make us relatable. They create these inside jokes and callbacks. They generate games you could never plan. They bond the audience. They open up all kinds of doorways to you. And one more real life example. For Canadians, especially of a certain age, I mean, I wasn't old enough to really appreciate this, but 1972, the Canada-Russia, USSR at the time, hockey series, 8 games, 4 in Canada, 4 over there. And everybody in Canada thought, oh, we're going to wipe the floor with them. Well, they came to Canada, and I think they won 3 out of 4 games. Like, they dominated us. And then we went there. And on the first game, game 5, the first game of the Soviet Union, I believe it was Phil Esposito, one of the captains or the captain of the team, went out on the ice and fell. And the audience kind of jeered him. And he didn't get upset. He got up and he bowed to the audience. And I'm not saying that was the turning point, but after that, Canada took control of that series, and it's lives in Canadian folklore. So mistakes aren't mistakes. They're bad only if you think they're bad. But if you think about them a different way and think about their opportunities, that's the thing. Not bad. They're possibilities. They open up the life, and they open up life of the character and the scene, and in real life, right? So in real life, mistakes equal growth, right? You understand, oh, okay, I shouldn't say yes to these people. I shouldn't do these things. I'm learning, figuring out, navigating my life, move to the wrong city, get the wrong job, wrong relationship, all that stuff, right? So we're changing away from like, oh no, to curiosity. Like, oh, what's this new thing that I never would have figured out, if I hadn't made that mistake, right? So a mistake is only bad if you label it that way. 95% of the time or more, it's an opportunity. And start there. Start with the opportunity. Maybe a mistake is bad. Like, I'm not saying it's never bad. It can be, right? And especially in certain situations, you can make mistakes. I'm sorry, and you apologize and you move on. But far too often we go, oh no, what have I done? Right? Think of them as opportunities, as doorways, as a new way of thinking, all that stuff in improv and in life. And in both those places, growth happens at the edge of your comfort zone, right? People come to me and they say, Ralph, I want to get out of my comfort zone. I'm like, no, you don't. But you might want to push up against the edges of it and expand it. Sure, that's fine. I get what you're saying, but you want to get it bigger. And that's where growth happens. If you stay too far in your comfort zone, nothing happens. No risk, no reward, no growth. Outside your comfort zone, chaos. Up against the edges, yes. All right, that's my time for today. So thank you very much for tuning in. Hope to see you again. Check us out at socap.ca. We'll look forward to hearing from you and getting all your questions. Thanks. Bye.